I never thought my high school would be the place that haunted me for years. I mean, schools are supposed to feel safe, right? Bright hallways, crowded cafeterias, teachers keeping an eye on everything. But once the sun goes down, all of that vanishes. The building becomes something else entirely. A hollow shell of concrete and steel, echoing with memories that refuse to stay buried. It happened during my senior year. Exams were coming up, and I was already stressed out. I had this habit of leaving books behind in random classrooms, and that night, it was my history notebook. It wasn't just any notebook. It had all my exam notes, my highlighted timelines, the exact stuff I needed to pass. So when I realized I'd left it on my desk after everyone had gone home, I told myself I'd just swing by and grab it. My mom wasn't thrilled. She asked why I couldn't just wait until morning. But the thought of showing up to class unprepared made me nervous. So, after dinner, I told her I'd only be a few minutes. Pause. The school was about a 15-minute walk from my house. By the time I reached the front gates, the sky had already darkened into this bluish-gray shade, the kind you see right before a full night sets in. There was no one outside, no security guard, no cars in the parking lot. Just rows of empty bikes chained to the racks, swaying slightly in the cold wind. The main doors weren't locked. They rarely were, since the janitor stayed late most nights. I stepped inside, and the first thing that hit me was the smell. Not the usual pencil shavings, cafeteria food, and floor wax. This was sharper, more chemical, like old bleach mixed with rust. It clung to the air, heavy and stale. The hallway lights flickered as I walked. My shoes squeaked against the polished floor, the sound bouncing off the lockers on either side. It was strange. Without the usual chaos of hundreds of students, the school felt enormous. Each step I took echoed like I was walking through an abandoned tunnel. My classroom was on the second floor, at the far end of the building. The stairwell loomed ahead of me, darker than it should have been. Only one of the fluorescent tubes was still working, buzzing faintly like a dying insect. I took the steps two at a time, not because I was in a hurry, but because the silence behind me felt wrong. Like if I lingered too long, something might follow. When I reached the hallway, I noticed something odd. Most of the doors were shut, like they always were after hours. But my classroom door, room 214, was slightly open, and the lights inside were still on. That didn't make sense. I was the last one out earlier in the day, and I knew I'd turned everything off. Still, I convinced myself the janitor must have gone in for cleaning. I pushed the door gently, the hinges creaking like an old swing set. The classroom looked normal at first glance. Rows of desks, chairs stacked neatly in the corner, the smell of chalk dust hanging faintly in the air. And there, on my desk, was my history notebook, exactly where I had left it. Relief washed over me. I grabbed the notebook, ready to leave, when my eyes drifted to the chalkboard. That's when my stomach dropped. Someone had drawn something, large, crude, and unsettling. It wasn't words. It was a figure. A stick figure with a rope drawn around its neck, dangling from a line that stretched across the board. And underneath, scrawled in messy, uneven handwriting, were 4 words. Don't stay after dark. Long pause. The chalk was still fresh. Tiny particles clung to the edge of the drawing, like it had been done minutes ago. I turned immediately, expecting to see someone behind me. But the hallway was empty. Silent. The kind of silence that presses down on your ears until you can hear your own pulse. For a second, I thought it was a prank. Maybe one of my friends had stayed behind just to mess with me. But who would wait around this late? And why? I shoved the notebook into my backpack and bolted for the door. The hallway seemed darker now, the buzzing light at the far end flickering more violently. And that's when I heard it. A sound. A faint dragging noise, like something heavy being pulled across the floor upstairs. Long pause. I froze. The noise grew louder, rhythmic, slow. A drag. Pause. Drag. Pause. I told myself it was the janitor moving equipment, but my gut twisted in a way I couldn't ignore. I tightened my grip on my backpack straps and forced myself down the hall, my footsteps quick and uneven. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I didn't want to draw attention. I made it to the stairwell, and that's when I heard it, clear as day in a low whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. My name, spoken softly, drawn out, almost playful. I don't remember how I made it out of the building. All I know is one moment I was frozen in place, heart pounding so hard it hurt. And the next I was outside, gasping for air, the night breeze cold against my sweaty face. I didn't stop running until I reached home. And even then, the sound of my name, that whisper, followed me into my dreams for weeks. I froze at the stairwell, the faint, dragging sound echoing from the upper floors. My backpack felt like it weighed 100 pounds, but I couldn't leave without knowing, without seeing what or who was making that sound. Slowly, I climbed the stairs, one step at a time, every creak of the wood making my heart jump. The hallway at the top was darker than before, shadows pooling in every corner. It smelled sharper here, like metal and wet concrete. And then I saw it. A door at the end of the hall was slightly ajar. Behind it, a faint light flickered, barely illuminating the room. And I could hear it clearly now. The dragging sound, methodical, deliberate, like someone was moving a heavy body across the floor. I swallowed hard, gripping my flashlight, forcing my legs to move forward. The closer I got, the colder the air became. It wasn't just cold. It was like the warmth had been sucked out of the hallway entirely. And then, a whisper, sharp and cruel. You shouldn't be here. I forced the door open. Inside, the classroom was empty, at first glance. The desks were perfectly lined up, the chalkboard wiped clean. Nothing seemed out of place, except for the shadows. They moved, slowly at first, stretching along the walls, bending in impossible ways. And then, from the far corner, something shifted. A figure, tall, thin, indistinct, but I could feel its eyes on me, burning into my skull. I stumbled backward, tripping over a desk, my flashlight clattering to the floor. The beam landed on the chalkboard, and there it was, my notebook. Open, pages ruffling, as if an invisible hand was flipping through them. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The shadows thickened, moving closer, almost tasting my fear. And then I heard it again, my name, drawn out, multiple voices now whispering, echoing. Don't stay. Don't stay. Don't stay. I grabbed the notebook and ran. Down the hallway, past the darkened classrooms, past the stairwell. The dragging sound followed me. Faster now, chaotic, like it was racing to catch me. I reached the front doors and flung them open. The night air hit me like a wall, sharp and cold. I didn't look back. I ran all the way home, my chest burning, my lungs screaming. When I finally reached my room, I locked the door and collapsed. The whispers, the dragging, the shadows, all gone. But the notebook was still open on my desk. And on the last page, written in the same messy handwriting from the chalkboard, "Some doors are better left closed." I never returned to the school after that night. And even years later, whenever I walk past it, I feel those eyes watching me from the windows, shadows stretching behind locked doors. Some stories don't end with a bang. Some linger quietly, whispering from the corners of your mind, waiting for you to remember. And that night, I learned. Some places are meant to stay empty.